Tonight, as you lay your head down on your pillow and close your eyes, something remarkable is about to happen. While your conscious mind drifts away into sleep, another mind, far more powerful, far more intelligent, remains wide awake. This mind never sleeps. It never rests. And right now, at this very moment, it is listening to every word you speak to it. My friend, I want you to understand something that will change your life forever. Your subconscious mind is the most powerful force in your entire existence, and it has been working day and night since the moment you were born. But here is what most people never discover. You can speak directly to this mind. You can give it instructions. You can program it with your desires, your dreams, your deepest wishes. And the most incredible time to do this, the time when your subconscious mind is most receptive, most open, most ready to accept your commands, is in those precious moments right before you fall asleep. I have spent decades studying the laws of mind, and I have witnessed miracles that would astound you. I have seen people heal from so-called incurable diseases. I have watched individuals rise from poverty to abundance. I have observed relationships transform from cold indifference to passionate love. And do you know what every single one of these people did? They learned to talk to their mind while they sleep. They learned the secret law that governs reality itself. And tonight, I am going to share this law with you in complete detail, holding nothing back. You see, most people go through life never understanding that they have two minds, not one. There is the conscious mind, which is the mind you use to think, to reason, to make decisions throughout your day. This is the mind that doubts, that worries, that analyzes everything. But then there is the subconscious mind, and this mind is entirely different. It does not reason. It does not argue. It does not question what you tell it. It simply accepts. It accepts every thought, every feeling, every belief you impress upon it, and then it goes to work making that thought a reality in your external world. Your subconscious mind is connected to infinite intelligence, to the creative power of the universe itself. It knows how to heal your body, it knows how to attract wealth, it knows how to bring the right people into your life at exactly the right time. But it needs direction from you, it needs clear, definite instructions. Now, why is the time right before sleep so powerful? Let me explain this to you in a way that will make perfect sense. Throughout your day, your conscious mind is highly active. It is busy with 1,000 different thoughts, concerns, and distractions. Your conscious mind is like a gatekeeper standing at the door of your subconscious, questioning everything, filtering everything, often rejecting the very ideas that could transform your life. But when you begin to fall asleep, something wonderful happens. That gatekeeper begins to step aside. Your conscious mind starts to relax its grip. The critical factor, as we call it, begins to dissolve. And in those moments, in that drowsy, peaceful state between waking and sleeping, your subconscious mind becomes incredibly receptive. It is like a garden with the gates wide open, ready to receive whatever seeds you plant. And the seeds you plant in those final moments before sleep will grow in the darkness of the night, and they will blossom into the circumstances, events, and conditions of your tomorrow. I want to tell you about a woman who came to see me many years ago. She was suffering, truly suffering. She had been diagnosed with a condition that her doctors said was chronic, that she would have to live with for the rest of her life. She was in pain every single day. She had tried everything the medical world had to offer, and nothing had worked. She sat in my office with tears in her eyes and asked me if there was any hope. I looked at her and I said, "Yes, there is hope. But the healing must come from within." I taught her this very technique I am sharing with you now. I told her that every night, as she was falling asleep, she should speak to her subconscious mind. She should say with feeling, with conviction, "My subconscious mind is now healing every cell of my body. I am whole, I am perfect, I am healthy and strong." Every night, without fail, she did this. She would lie in bed, close her eyes, and speak these words over and over until she drifted off to sleep. What happened next is what I have seen happen countless times when someone truly applies this law. Within 3 weeks, her pain began to diminish. Within 2 months, she went back to her doctors for tests, and they were astounded. The condition was improving in ways they said were medically impossible. Within 6 months, she was completely free, completely healed, living a normal, active, joyful life. Now, did I heal her? No. Did her doctors heal her? No. Her own subconscious mind healed her, because she learned to speak to it correctly, at the right time, with the right feeling. This is not magic. This is not wishful thinking. This is law. This is the way your mind actually works, and when you align yourself with this law, miracles become natural. Let me tell you about a man I once counseled who came to me in absolute despair. His business was failing, his health was deteriorating, his marriage was crumbling. He sat in my office and said, "Dr. Murphy, I've tried everything, nothing works for me." I asked him a simple question. "What do you think about most of the day?" He didn't hesitate. "I think about my debts. I think about how I'm going to lose everything. I think about my wife leaving me. I think about getting sicker." There was my answer. This man wasn't a victim of circumstances. He was a victim of his own mental habits. Every single day, from morning until night, he was impressing his subconscious mind with images of failure, loss, illness, and abandonment. And his subconscious mind, being the faithful servant that it is, was working tirelessly to bring these images into his physical reality. I gave him a new assignment. Every morning and every night, for just 10 minutes, he was to sit quietly and imagine the complete opposite. He was to see his business thriving, customers returning, money flowing in. He was to feel himself vibrant and healthy, full of energy and vitality. He was to picture his wife smiling at him with love and affection, their relationship restored and even better than before. He looked at me skeptically. "That's it? Just imagination?" "Just imagination," I said. "Imagination is everything. It is the preview of life's coming attractions. Your imagination is the workshop of your mind where you fashion your future." For the first few days, he told me it felt false. It felt like lying to himself. His rational mind kept interrupting, saying, "This isn't real. You're just pretending. Open your eyes and face reality." But I encouraged him to persist. "Your current reality," I told him, "was once just imagination too. Every circumstance in your life right now was first a thought, then a feeling, then a belief, and finally a physical fact. If you want to change your reality, you must start with a different thought." After 2 weeks, something shifted. He began to feel different. Not because his circumstances had changed yet, but because his inner world had changed. He felt lighter, more hopeful, more energized. And here's what's crucial. That feeling was the seed that would grow into his new reality. Within a month, unexpected things began to happen. A client he thought he'd lost called him back with a bigger order. A solution to his financial problem appeared from a completely unexpected source. His health began to improve. His wife noticed the change in him, and their conversations became warmer. 3 months later, his business was stable and growing. 6 months later, every single problem that had brought him to my office had either resolved or was well on its way to resolution. Was it magic? No. It was law. The law of mind. The law that says, as within, so without. As above, so below. As you believe, so shall it be done unto you. You see, your subconscious mind doesn't judge or question. It doesn't say, "Well, that's a good idea, but this other thought is silly." It accepts whatever you habitually impress upon it. If you consistently feed it thoughts of lack, it produces lack. If you feed it thoughts of abundance, it produces abundance. It's completely impartial, like the soil that will grow whatever seed you plant in it. Whether that seed is a beautiful flower or a poisonous weed, your subconscious mind doesn't argue with you. It doesn't say, "Well, I don't think you deserve that," or "That's impossible for you." No. It accepts what you impress upon it. If you say, "I am poor," your subconscious says, "Yes, you are poor, and sets about creating circumstances that match that belief. If you say, "I am prosperous," it says, "Yes, you are prosperous," and begins attracting opportunities that align with that conviction. This is why affirmations work, but only when done correctly. You can't just repeat words mechanically and expect results. You must feel the truth of what you're saying. You must convince your subconscious mind by repetition, by emotional conviction, by creating mental images that support your affirmation. Think of it this way: your conscious mind is the gardener, and your subconscious mind is the garden. The gardener decides what to plant, but the garden does the growing. The gardener doesn't make the seed sprout or the plant bear fruit. That's the garden's job. The gardener simply prepares the soil, plants the seed, waters it, and has faith that nature will do the rest. Now here's something crucial that most people miss entirely. Your subconscious mind is connected to infinite intelligence, to the creative power of the universe itself. When you impress a desire upon your subconscious, you're not working alone. You're tapping into a power that knows how to grow a child from a single cell, how to heal a cut on your finger without any conscious instruction from you, how to beat your heart and breathe your lungs while you sleep. This same power can guide you to the right opportunity, bring the right person into your life, or open a door you didn't even know existed. But it can only work with the material you give it. If you give it fear, doubt, and limitation, that's what it must work with. If you give it faith, confidence, and a clear vision of what you want, it will move heaven and earth to bring it to pass. I've seen this principle demonstrated thousands of times. A woman came to me once, desperately worried about her financial situation. She was behind on rent, had mounting bills, and saw no way out. I asked her, "What do you think about most of the day?" She said, "My debts. I wake up thinking about them, I go to bed thinking about them. I can't escape them." I said to her, "Then you're impressing poverty upon your subconscious mind. You're fertilizing the weed instead of the flower." I instructed her to stop rehearsing her problems, and instead to spend time each day affirming wealth and supply. Every time she caught herself worrying about bills, she was to immediately replace that thought with, "God is my instant, constant, and abundant supply. All my needs are met right now." She was skeptical but desperate enough to try. Within 2 weeks, an unexpected check arrived from an old insurance policy she'd forgotten about. Within a month, she received a promotion at work. Within 3 months, she was completely out of debt and had money in savings for the first time in years. Was this magic? No, it was law. When she changed what she was impressing upon her subconscious mind, her subconscious changed what it was creating in her life. And when I work with people who say, "I've tried this and it doesn't work," do you know what I find every single time? I find that they didn't actually change what they were impressing upon their subconscious. They thought they did. They spoke affirmations while believing the opposite. They visualized success while feeling unworthy of it. They prayed for abundance while cementing their conviction in lack. Your subconscious mind doesn't respond to your words. It responds to what you actually believe. It responds to the feeling tone, the emotional conviction, the mental atmosphere you consistently maintain. Think of it this way. If you plant a seed in soil, that seed will grow according to its nature. The soil doesn't judge the seed. It doesn't say, "This is a good seed, I'll nourish it," or "This is a bad seed, I'll reject it." The soil simply receives whatever seed is planted and brings forth after its kind. Your subconscious mind is like that soil. It's completely impersonal. It will accept and act upon whatever you plant in it, whether that seed is constructive or destructive, loving or fearful, abundant or lacking. Now here's where most people go wrong. They plant seeds of lack and limitation all day long, through worry, through fear, through negative mental conversations. Then, for 5 minutes before bed, they try to plant a seed of abundance through affirmation, and they wonder why nothing changes. It's like throwing one good seed into soil where you've planted 1,000 weeds, and expecting that one seed to overtake the entire garden. It doesn't work that way. If you want to change your life, you must become aware of the habitual patterns of thought and feeling you've been maintaining. What do you tell yourself when you look in the mirror? What do you say when you check your bank account? What thoughts occupy your mind in the quiet moments? These are the seeds you're consistently planting. I knew a man, a salesman, who came to me because he was struggling financially. He said, "Dr. Murphy, I'm doing everything right, but I just can't get ahead." So I asked him to describe his typical day, particularly his mental and emotional patterns. He told me that every morning, he'd wake up anxious about money. He'd check his bank account and feel a knot in his stomach. On his drive to work, he'd worry about meeting his sales quota. When he met with clients, beneath his professional smile, he was desperate, hoping they would buy so he could make his rent. And at night, he'd lie awake calculating numbers, wondering how he'd make ends meet. "I'm affirming abundance every night," he told me. "I say I am prosperous 20 times before I sleep. But you see the problem, don't you? 20 affirmations at night couldn't possibly overcome the hundreds of fear-based thoughts he was planting throughout each day. His dominant mental atmosphere was one of lack and fear. That was what he was truly impressing upon his subconscious mind. And his subconscious was faithfully creating more circumstances that matched that impression. I explained to him that it wasn't about adding affirmations on top of worry. It was about replacing the worry entirely. We had to change the soil itself. I taught him a simple technique. Before bed, instead of lying there running through worst-case scenarios, he would enter a light meditative state. Not forced, just relaxed. And in that state he would see himself at his desk, working calmly and efficiently. He would see his boss nodding in approval. He would feel the satisfaction of completing his tasks well. The first few nights, his mind fought back. Old patterns don't surrender easily. Worry thoughts would intrude. But what if this doesn't work? I told him this was normal. The subconscious is like water that's been flowing in one direction for years. You don't redirect a river in a day. But he persisted. And gradually, something shifted. Not overnight, but steadily. His sleep improved first. Then his actual performance at work began to change. Not because he suddenly gained new skills, but because he stopped sabotaging himself with fear. The same man, the same job, but a completely different inner atmosphere. Within 2 months, his boss actually commended him on his recent work. The external circumstances hadn't changed dramatically, but his internal response to them had been revolutionized. This is what I mean when I say thoughts are seeds. What you plant in the moments before sleep, in those quiet contemplative times, will grow in your experience. You cannot plant thorns and expect roses. You cannot plant fear and expect confidence. Now, you might be thinking, "But Dr. Murphy, I've tried positive thinking. I've repeated affirmations. Nothing changed." And I want to address this directly, because it's one of the most common objections I encounter. The problem isn't with the principle. The principle is absolute. The problem is in the application. Most people use affirmations like talismans, like magic words that lose their power when you stop saying them. They repeat, "I am confident. I am confident," while feeling completely terrified inside. This is not conviction. This is contradiction. And the subconscious mind responds not to your words, but to your feeling, your belief, your inner conviction. You can say, "I am wealthy 1,000 times," but if underneath those words is a feeling of lack, of desperation, of "please let this work because I'm broke," then lack is what you're impressing upon your subconscious. The subconscious doesn't argue with you. It doesn't say, "No, you're not wealthy." It simply accepts the dominant feeling and proceeds to create circumstances that match it. If your dominant feeling is lack, you'll experience lack. If your dominant feeling is abundance, even while your bank account says otherwise, you'll begin to experience abundance. This is why I always emphasize feeling over repetition. One moment of genuine feeling, of true conviction, is worth more than 10,000 mechanical repetitions. When you can feel yourself already in possession of what you desire, when you can experience the reality of it in your imagination so vividly that it produces emotion, that's when transformation begins. Let me give you another example, one that illustrates this beautifully. A woman came to me several years ago, desperate to heal a relationship with her estranged daughter. They hadn't spoken in 3 years. The hurt ran deep on both sides. She had tried everything, she said. She'd sent letters that went unanswered. She'd reached out through mutual friends. Nothing worked. And underneath it all was a current of resentment. She was angry at her daughter for being stubborn, for holding a grudge. But here's what she didn't see. Her resentment was the very thing preventing reconciliation. It was like trying to put out a fire while pouring gasoline on it. Every time she approached her daughter with that underlying current of blame, her daughter felt it. Maybe not consciously, but on some level, she sensed that her mother wasn't coming from a place of pure love. She was coming from a place of wounded pride and unresolved anger. So I asked her a question that changed everything. I said, "What if your daughter is simply reflecting back to you the energy you're sending out?" She bristled at first. "I'm not sending out bad energy," she protested. "I'm the one trying to fix this." But when we dug deeper, she had to admit the truth. Every prayer she said for her daughter was tinged with criticism. Every visualization ended with her daughter apologizing, admitting she was wrong, coming back humbled. She wasn't praying for reconciliation, she was praying for vindication. That's not prayer. That's manipulation dressed up in spiritual language. Real prayer, real subconscious programming, comes from a place of complete release. It comes from accepting what is, forgiving fully yourself and others, and then imagining the outcome you desire as if it already exists, without attachment to how it unfolds. I guided her to try something different. Every night before sleep, instead of rehashing the argument or mentally composing speeches to her daughter, she began to imagine a simple scene, her daughter calling her, and the two of them laughing together like they used to. Not about the past, not about who was right or wrong, just laughing, connected, at peace. She didn't force it. She didn't add details about apologies or explanations. She simply felt the feeling of that connection restored. She heard her daughter's laughter in her mind. She felt the warmth in her chest that comes from genuine reconciliation. And most importantly, she released all the resentment. She stopped being angry at her daughter for being stubborn. She stopped being angry at herself for whatever mistakes she'd made. She just held that image and that feeling, then drifted off to sleep. 3 weeks later, her daughter called. Out of the blue. The conversation was awkward at first, but there was something different, a softness that hadn't been there before. Within 2 months, they were meeting for coffee regularly. Within 6 months, their relationship was closer than it had been in years. What changed? Did her daughter suddenly decide to forgive her? Did the universe intervene with some cosmic miracle? No. What changed was the mother's subconscious beliefs and the energy she was radiating. When she stopped demanding reconciliation and started embodying it, when she stopped resenting her daughter and started genuinely releasing the past, her entire presence shifted. And her daughter, whether she realized it or not, responded to that shift. This is how the subconscious mind works in relationships. It's not magic, it's energy, it's vibration, it's the law of mind in action. You cannot attract healthy, loving relationships while harboring resentment, fear, or unworthiness in your subconscious. You cannot create a connection while simultaneously pushing people away with your unspoken beliefs about yourself and others. Your relationships are always reflecting your inner world back to you. The person who constantly attracts unfaithful partners is carrying a belief that they're not worthy of loyalty. The person who finds themselves surrounded by takers has a subconscious pattern of self-sacrifice that attracts people who will take advantage. The person who can never maintain long-term friendships is running a program that says, "People will eventually leave me," and so they either push people away first, or subtly create the conditions that make departure inevitable. This isn't about blame. I want to be crystal clear about that. This isn't saying you're at fault for how others treat you. People have free will. People make their own choices. But what you can control is the beliefs you hold and the energy you emit, and those two things have a profound influence on the kinds of relationships that come into your life and how they unfold. So I want you to start right here, right now, looking at the pattern of your relationships, not with judgment, but with curiosity. Ask yourself, what kind of person keeps showing up in my life? What kind of energy am I consistently meeting? Because here's what most people miss. The person who keeps disappointing you isn't the problem. The problem is the part of you that expects to be disappointed. You see, your subconscious mind is like a magnet. It doesn't attract what you want. It attracts what you are. If you carry a deep belief that you're not worthy of love, you will unconsciously seek out people who confirm that belief. If you believe that people always leave, you will create situations where leaving becomes inevitable. If you believe you have to earn affection through sacrifice, you will attract takers who are more than happy to let you give until you're empty. And I know what you're thinking, but I don't want those things. I want healthy love. I want respect. I want partnership. I believe you. Consciously, you want those things. But your subconscious doesn't care what you consciously want. Your subconscious operates on what you truly believe, deep down, in the hidden chambers of your mind where your childhood wounds live, where your past failures echo, where your unhealed pain still whispers. So if you want different relationships, you can't just want them. You have to become a different person. You have to reprogram the subconscious beliefs that are running the show. Let me give you a practical example. I once knew a woman brilliant, accomplished, kind, who kept attracting emotionally unavailable men. Every single relationship, same pattern. They'd start strong, then the man would pull away, become distant, and eventually she'd be left confused and heartbroken. For years she blamed the men. Why do I always pick the wrong ones, she'd ask. But here's what we discovered when she finally looked inward. Her father had been emotionally absent her entire childhood, present physically but emotionally unavailable, and as a little girl, she learned that love meant chasing someone who couldn't fully see her. She learned that affection was something you had to work for, something always just out of reach. That became her blueprint. That became her magnet. So even though she consciously wanted a man who was present and open, her subconscious was drawing her toward the familiar pattern, the pattern that felt like home, even though home was painful. The breakthrough came when she stopped trying to change the men and started changing the belief. She began affirming every single day, I am worthy of a love that is present, open, and available. I attract partners who are emotionally mature and capable of true intimacy. She repeated it until it sank past her conscious resistance, down into the subconscious soil where the real roots live. And you know what happened? The unavailable men stopped appearing. Not because they disappeared from the world, but because she stopped resonating with that frequency. Her energy shifted, and the kinds of people she attracted shifted with it. This is the essence of living by faith versus living by fear. When you live by faith, you're living from the consciousness of already having. When you live by fear, you're living from the consciousness of lack, constantly trying to prevent disaster. Think about two business owners. One wakes up every morning worried about competition, afraid of losing customers, anxious about market changes. This person makes defensive decisions, cuts corners to save money, hoards information from their team, and operates from scarcity. What happens? The very things they fear begin to manifest. Customers sense the desperation. Employees become disengaged. Opportunities are missed because fear clouds judgment. The other business owner wakes up with gratitude for their enterprise, confidence in their value, and faith in abundance. They invest in their people, share their knowledge freely, and make decisions from a place of possibility rather than protection. Their business thrives not because they had better circumstances, but because they had better consciousness. I've watched this principle play out in health as well. Two people receive the same diagnosis. One immediately accepts it as their identity and their fate. I am a diabetic. This is who I am now. They read everything about the disease, join support groups centered on the problem, and their entire self-concept becomes wrapped up in this condition. The other person hears the diagnosis but refuses to accept it as their permanent reality. They see it as information, not identity. They begin to imagine themselves healthy, to feel what it would be like to have a body that functions perfectly. They speak to their body with love and expectation rather than fear and resignation. They think from health, not toward it. The medical establishment will tell you both people have the same prognosis, but I've seen miraculous reversals happen when someone changes their consciousness. The body responds to the mind. Your cells are listening to your thoughts. Your biology follows your belief. Now, here's what often happens when people first learn this principle. They try to use it like a magic trick. They spend 15 minutes imagining wealth, then spend the remaining 23 hours and 45 minutes of the day worrying about bills, complaining about their job, and talking about how expensive everything is. Then they wonder why the technique didn't work. It's like trying to drive north while your transmission is in reverse. You can turn the steering wheel toward your destination all you want, but you're moving in the opposite direction. The transformation must be continuous, not occasional. This isn't about setting aside a few minutes for visualization and then returning to your habitual negative patterns. This is about fundamentally shifting your dominant mental attitude. I knew a teacher who desperately wanted to leave her job and become a writer. Every day she would spend her morning commute visualizing her new life. But then she'd walk into school and immediately start complaining. I hate this place. These kids are impossible. This administration is incompetent. I'll never get out of here. She'd spend her lunch break with other teachers who reinforced this victim mentality. Her entire day was saturated with resistance and resentment. Her morning visualization was like planting seeds in good soil, then pouring poison on them all day long. The seeds had no chance to grow. It wasn't that the principle didn't work. It was that she was working against herself. Now, I want you to see this clearly. Your conscious mind is the gardener. Your subconscious mind is the soil. The gardener chooses what to plant, but the soil doesn't argue. It doesn't say, I don't like this seed, or I refuse to grow this plant. The soil accepts every seed without judgment and begins to grow it immediately. This is why you must become aware of what you're planting. Every thought, every word you speak about yourself, every image you hold in your mind, these are seeds. And your subconscious is growing them right now, this very moment, while you're listening to me. Let me share something with you that changed everything for one of my students. He was a salesman who kept saying, I'm no good at closing deals. I get nervous and freeze up. He would repeat this to his colleagues, to his wife, to himself. Then he'd go out and try to use affirmations. I am a confident salesman. I close every deal with ease. But nothing changed. He came to me frustrated, convinced the method didn't work. I asked him one simple question. How many times a day do you tell yourself you're no good at closing versus how many times you repeat your affirmation? He thought about it. Well, I say my affirmations twice a day, maybe 3 times. But I guess I tell myself I'm no good at it. I don't know, maybe 20 times a day? There it was. He was planting 20 weeds for every 3 flowers. His subconscious was simply growing what he planted most frequently, most emotionally, most consistently. I told him, your subconscious doesn't care which seeds you plant more. It just grows whatever you give it the most attention. If you plant doubt 20 times and faith 3 times, you will harvest doubt. He changed his approach, not just adding affirmations, but removing the contradictions. When he caught himself saying, I'm no good at this, he stopped mid-sentence. He became vigilant. He guarded his mind like a gardener guards his garden against weeds. Within 3 months, he was the top salesman in his company. The same principle, the same man, the same subconscious mind. The only difference was that he stopped working against himself. This is what most people don't understand about prayer, about affirmations, about faith. They think it's about saying the right words with enough emotion for a few minutes a day. But your subconscious is listening all day long. It's recording every thought, every feeling, every image you dwell upon. You can't pray for 5 minutes in the morning and worry for 12 hours during the day and expect the prayer to manifest. That's like planting a seed in the morning and then digging it up every hour to see if it's growing. You destroy it with your interference. Your subconscious responds to the dominant thought pattern, the habitual feeling, the consistent mental picture, not the occasional wish, not the desperate plea in a moment of crisis, but the steady, unwavering assumption that what you desire is already yours in consciousness. I remember a woman who came to my lectures for months. She had a chronic illness, and she would tell me each week, "Dr. Murphy, I'm doing everything right. I visualize perfect health every single day. I say my affirmations, but nothing changes." So I watched her more carefully. Before the lecture, I heard her telling another woman, "This illness is killing me. I've had it for years. The doctors say it's incurable." During the break, "I'm so tired of being sick." After the lecture, "I hope this finally works because I've tried everything and nothing helps." Do you see what was happening? She was watering the garden of illness all day long, and planting one small seed of health in the morning. Her subconscious could only grow what she gave life to through her attention, her words, her feelings. So I invited her to reverse the proportion completely. "From now on," I said, "you will spend the majority of your mental energy affirming health, and only occasional moments acknowledging the condition as it presently appears." She began to understand that acknowledgement of present facts does not require constant rehearsal. You can know something without emotionally feeding it. Within 3 weeks, her energy improved. Within 2 months, her symptoms diminished noticeably. Within 4 months, her doctors were astonished at the reversal. What changed? Not the technique itself, but the ratio of belief to doubt, of affirmation to negation. She finally gave her garden of consciousness what it needed to flourish. This brings us to one of the most liberating truths I can share with you. Your past does not determine your future unless you continue to think thoughts that recreate the past in your present moment. So many people carry wounds from years ago, replaying old conversations, rehearsing old hurts, resenting old betrayals, and all the while, they wonder why their lives remain stagnant. Listen carefully. When you dwell on the past, you are not remembering it. You are recreating it. You are bringing its emotional signature into your now, impressing it upon your subconscious mind as current reality, and commanding it to manifest more experiences that match that vibration. The past has no power except the power you give it through present thought. I knew a man whose business partner had betrayed him 15 years before we met. 15 years. And yet every time we spoke, within minutes, he would bring up that betrayal. I trusted him and he destroyed me. He would say, his face reddening, his jaw clenching, as if the event had occurred that morning. I said to him gently, "My friend, do you realize that you are in business partnership with that betrayal every single day? You may have parted ways with the man, but you have taken the betrayal as your constant companion. You wake with it, you work with it, you sleep with it, and your subconscious mind, loyal servant that it is, continues to attract circumstances that match this vibration of betrayal." He was shocked. He had never considered that his persistent resentment was not merely an emotional inconvenience but an active creative force shaping his present circumstances. Once he understood, he began the practice of forgiveness, not for the other man's sake, but for his own freedom. He released that man from the prison of his mind, and in doing so, released himself. Within months, new partnerships formed. Opportunities emerged, his business expanded. Why? Because he stopped broadcasting the signal of betrayal and began broadcasting something new. This is why forgiveness is not a moral luxury but a psychological necessity. When you forgive, you are not condoning wrong behavior. You are simply refusing to allow that behavior to continue poisoning your present and shaping your future. You are withdrawing your energy from what was and redirecting it toward what can be. Now, some of you may be thinking, "But Joseph, what if the thing I'm dealing with is not in the past? What if it's happening right now, today, in my present reality?" This is where we must become very precise in our understanding. Yes, circumstances exist in your external world, but your experience of those circumstances, your reaction to them, your interpretation of their meaning, this all happens in consciousness. And it is your consciousness, not the circumstances themselves, that determines what comes next. Two people can face the identical situation and have completely opposite experiences. One person loses their job and spirals into depression, convinced that they're a failure, that they'll never recover, that life is punishing them. Another person loses their job and sees it as liberation, as the universe pushing them towards something better, as an opportunity they didn't have the courage to create for themselves. The circumstance is the same, the job loss is identical, but the consciousness is different, and therefore the outcome will be different. The person who accepts the job loss as failure will likely struggle for months, will approach new opportunities from a place of desperation and lack, will unconsciously sabotage interviews because deep down they believe they don't deserve better. The person who accepts the job loss as opportunity will likely move quickly towards something new, will approach possibilities with confidence and expectation, will attract opportunities that match their inner state of readiness for something greater. This is why acceptance is never passive resignation. True acceptance is active choice. You are choosing, in every moment, what meaning you will assign to the events of your life. You are choosing what you will accept as true about yourself, about others, about the world, and those choices, made consistently in consciousness, become the template for your experience. Let me give you a powerful practice that demonstrates this principle immediately. Think of something in your life right now that you've been resisting, something you've been fighting against, complaining about, wishing were different. Maybe it's a relationship dynamic, a financial situation, a physical limitation, a job you don't enjoy. Now, instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" or "How do I make this go away?" ask yourself this question: what if I accepted this completely, right now, exactly as it is? Notice what happens in your body when you ask that question. For most people, there's an immediate sense of relief. The tension that comes from resistance begins to dissolve. Your breathing deepens. Your shoulders drop. Something inside you relaxes. That relaxation is not defeat. It's power returning to you. Because when you're fighting against what is, all your energy goes into that fight. You have nothing left for creation. But when you accept what is, all that energy becomes available for transformation. This is the secret that transforms acceptance from passive to active. Acceptance doesn't mean you do nothing. It means you stop doing the one thing that guarantees nothing can change: resistance. You accept the present moment completely. And from that acceptance, from that place of inner peace and power, you turn your attention to what you choose to create next. You say, "This is where I am. I accept it fully. And now, what do I accept as true about where I'm going?" This is the movement from acceptance of circumstances to acceptance in consciousness. You stop fighting what is and start building what will be. And you build it the same way everything in your life has been built. Through the thoughts you think consistently, the feelings you cultivate deliberately, the states of consciousness you choose to dwell in. You see, most people wait for circumstances to change before they accept. They say, "I'll accept abundance when I have money. I'll accept health when I feel better. I'll accept love when someone proves they care." But this is backwards. This is trying to gather the harvest before you've planted the seed. The seed is acceptance in consciousness first. You accept yourself as prosperous now, while the bank account still shows a number you don't prefer. You accept yourself as healthy now, while the body is still adjusting. You accept yourself as loved now, while the outer world has not yet reflected it back to you. This is not denial. This is not pretending. This is planting. Let me give you an example from my own life. There was a time when I was struggling financially, working long hours for very little return. I could have continued to accept the story that money is hard to come by, or I have to struggle to survive. Instead, I began a different practice. Every night before sleep, I would enter into the feeling of financial freedom. I wouldn't visualize specific amounts or worry about the how. I would simply feel what it would be like to live without financial anxiety. I would feel the ease, the relief, the quiet confidence of knowing all my needs were met abundantly. I accepted this feeling as my natural state. I claimed it as true in consciousness before it was true in circumstance. And I did this not once or twice, but night after night after night. What happened? Opportunities began to appear that had been invisible to me before. A publisher showed interest in my work. Speaking engagements materialized. Doors opened that I hadn't even known existed. But here's what you must understand. Those doors were always there. The opportunities were always present. What changed was my consciousness. What changed was what I accepted as true about myself. The outer world had no choice but to conform. This is how acceptance works. It's not passive. It's not resignation. It's the most creative act you can perform. You accept in mind first, and reality follows. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. But Joseph, I've tried this. I've tried to accept better things, and nothing changed. And my answer is this. You tried with your conscious mind only. You affirmed with your lips while your heart remained unconvinced. You said the words while your imagination was still picturing the old story. Real acceptance happens at the level of feeling. It happens when you can sit quietly, close your eyes, and genuinely feel the reality of what you're accepting as true. Not hope for it, not wish for it. Feel it as accomplished fact. When you accept health, you don't just think the words, I am healthy. You feel the vitality flowing through your body. You sense the strength in your limbs. You experience the ease of breath, the clarity of mind, the energy that comes from a body functioning perfectly. When you accept abundance, you don't just repeat, I am prosperous. You feel the security, the freedom, the generosity that comes from knowing you have more than enough. You experience the consciousness of wealth, which is entirely different from the consciousness of lack, pretending to be wealthy. Do you see the difference? The subconscious mind accepts feelings, not words. It responds to the state you dwell in, not the state you occasionally visit. This is why affirmations often fail. People repeat words without feeling. They say, I am wealthy, while their stomach churns with anxiety about bills. They say, I am confident, while their body language screams insecurity. They say, I am healed, while picturing themselves sick. The subconscious doesn't hear your words. It feels your conviction. It registers your dominant emotional state. I once worked with a woman who had practiced affirmations for years without result. She would stand before her mirror each morning and declare, I am prosperous. Money flows to me easily. But her voice was flat. Her eyes were doubtful. And immediately after her affirmations, she would check her bank account with dread and complain to her friends about her financial struggles. Her words said prosperity. Her feeling said poverty. And feeling always wins. I asked her to try something different. Instead of repeating words she didn't believe, I had her recall a time when she felt genuinely secure. A moment in childhood when she was completely cared for, completely safe, completely provided for. I had her immerse herself in that feeling, that state of being, for just 5 minutes each day. No words, no declarations, just feeling. Within 3 weeks, she received an unexpected job offer. Within 2 months, her financial situation had completely transformed. Not through magical thinking, but through the natural workings of a subconscious mind that had finally accepted a new instruction. When you pray, you must feel the reality of what you desire. You must enter into the state of the wish fulfilled and dwell there long enough for it to take root in your subconscious mind. This is what the mystics meant by praying in secret. They weren't talking about the location. They were talking about the inner chamber of consciousness, where no one sees but the Father within, the subconscious mind that moves all the pieces of your outer world. Let me give you a technique that has transformed countless lives. It's called the method of Jospeh, the wish fulfilled. It's simple, but its simplicity conceals profound power. Before you sleep each night, when your conscious mind begins to relax its grip, and your subconscious becomes more receptive, construct a single scene that would naturally occur after your desire is fulfilled. Not the desire itself, but something that implies its fulfillment. If you desire a new home, don't imagine yourself searching for one. Imagine yourself in your new kitchen, touching the countertops, feeling the satisfaction of ownership. Make it real. Make it sensory. See the colors, hear the sounds, feel the textures. If you desire a healed body, don't imagine the healing process. Imagine yourself doing something you couldn't do before. Climbing stairs with ease, dancing without pain, hearing a doctor say, "I can't explain it, but you're completely healthy." If you desire a loving relationship, don't imagine meeting someone. Imagine already being loved. Feel the warmth of affection. Hear words of appreciation. Experience the reality of mutual respect and joy. The scene should be brief. A few seconds is enough. But it must be vivid. It must be felt. And you must loop it gently as you drift into sleep, planting it deep in the subconscious soil of your mind. This is not fantasy. This is not escapism. This is scientific prayer. You are impressing your subconscious mind with the pattern of your fulfilled desire, and your subconscious mind, which controls all involuntary functions of your body and attracts all circumstances of your life, will begin to manifest that pattern in your waking world. It works because you are working with law, universal law, the law of consciousness, the law that says, as within, so without. You don't have to understand it intellectually to use it. You don't need to comprehend the mechanics of electricity to flip a switch and flood a room with light. You don't need to grasp the mysteries of seed and soil to plant a garden. You use the law by conviction, by acceptance, by feeling the truth of your desire fulfilled. And here's what I want you to understand deeply. This isn't about manipulation. This isn't about forcing the universe to bend to your ego's demands. This is about alignment. This is about bringing your consciousness into harmony with what you truly desire, with what the infinite intelligence within you is seeking to express through your life. When you pray, when you affirm, when you visualize with feeling, you're not begging some distant deity. You're activating a law. You're impressing your subconscious mind with a clear pattern, a definite image, and that mind goes to work to bring it forth into your experience. I've seen this happen thousands of times. The woman who was told she'd never walk again, who night after night visualized herself dancing, who felt the joy of movement in her imagination until her body responded and she walked. The man drowning in debt who reversed his fortune not by worrying more, but by assuming the feeling of financial freedom, by giving thanks for abundance before it appeared in his bank account. These aren't miracles in the supernatural sense. They're miracles in the natural sense. The natural response of universal law to a changed state of consciousness. But you have to be willing to let go of the old story. That's the price of admission. You can't simultaneously hold on to your limitations and expect your freedom. You can't nurture your wounds and expect to bloom. You must be willing to die to the old state, to completely abandon it in consciousness so the new state can be born. This is where most people stumble. They want the new life, but they refuse to release the old identity. They affirm abundance while clutching their poverty consciousness. They visualize health while rehearsing their symptoms to anyone who'll listen. They claim they're changing while surrounding themselves with people and circumstances that reinforce exactly who they used to be. You cannot serve two masters. You cannot go north and south simultaneously. Choose. Choose the state you desire and be faithful to it. Loyalty, consistency, persistence in the assumption, that's what brings it forth. Your subconscious doesn't judge whether your assumption is good or bad. It simply accepts what you repeatedly impress upon it and works to externalize it. This is why we must become conscious gardeners of our inner world, careful about what seeds we plant, vigilant about what we allow to take root. And when you do this, when you truly take command of your inner conversations, your habitual thoughts, your imaginative acts, you'll begin to notice something extraordinary. The world around you starts to shift, not because the world has changed, but because you have changed, and you now perceive differently. You notice opportunities that were always there but invisible to your former state. You attract circumstances and people that match your new vibration. Doors open that seemed permanently sealed. This is the secret that the mystics have whispered through the ages, that the greatest teachers have tried to convey. Change yourself, and your world must change. Not might change, not could change. Must change. It's law. When I say must, I don't mean some external force is demanding it of you. I mean your own consciousness won't allow anything else. You can't harbor the conviction of wealth and remain poor. You can't embody health and stay sick. The two states cannot coexist in the same mental space. Think of it like water reaching boiling point. At 211 degrees it's hot water. At 212 degrees it transforms into steam. That 1 degree makes all the difference. Your conviction is that final degree. Your persistence in the assumption is what brings the water to boil. Most people live their entire lives at 210 degrees. They get close. They almost believe, they almost persist. And they wonder why nothing changes. They're 1 degree away from transformation. But they turn down the heat before the miracle happens. I'm asking you to stay with it. To keep the temperature high. To maintain your assumption even when every physical sense screams otherwise. Because here's what I've learned after years of studying consciousness. The moment you're most tempted to give up is often the moment right before your breakthrough. The darkest hour really is just before dawn. That's not poetry. That's how consciousness works. Your subconscious tests your conviction, it has to. Because if it manifested every passing thought, every fleeting worry, every momentary fear, your life would be chaos. So it waits. It observes. It asks, do you really mean this? Or are you just wishing? And when you prove through persistence that you do mean it, when you demonstrate through assumption that this is your actual state, then it has no choice but to bring it forth into your world. I'm not asking for blind faith. I'm asking for intelligent persistence. There's a difference. Blind faith says, I'll believe no matter what, even without understanding. Intelligent persistence says, I understand the principle, so I apply it consistently, knowing results must follow. You understand now that consciousness is the only reality. You understand that assumption hardens into fact. You understand that your inner world creates your outer world. This isn't belief. This is knowledge. And knowledge demands application. So you persist not from desperation but from understanding. Not from hope but from certainty. You already know how this ends. You're simply living out the interval between assumption and manifestation. Every day you wake up you don't ask, will it work? You know it's working. The question is only how will it unfold? And even that question you release, because the how is not your concern. Your concern is only the what and the who you are. What are you? Healthy, prosperous, loved, successful, peaceful. Who are you? The person for whom these things are natural, normal, already done. Let me tell you something that might surprise you. The bigger your desire, the easier this process becomes. Not harder. Easier. Because when you're pursuing something that truly matters to you, something that aligns with your deepest nature, persistence isn't a discipline. It's a joy. You don't have to force yourself to assume the state. You want to live there. It feels like home. But when you're chasing something that doesn't really resonate with who you are, persistence feels like grinding. That's your inner wisdom telling you something. So make sure what you're assuming is truly yours. Not what someone told you to want. Not what society says you should desire. But what makes your spirit sing. What feels like the natural extension of your highest self. Because when you're pursuing that, persistence isn't work. It's worship. It's the most natural thing in the world. You see, I meet people all the time who tell me, Dr. Murphy, I've tried everything. I've affirmed, I've visualized, I've prayed. Nothing works. And when I sit down with them, when I really listen, I discover something remarkable. They haven't tried everything. They've tried the same thing over and over, expecting different results. They've been watering a plastic plant and wondering why it won't bloom. Persistence doesn't mean doing the same thing repeatedly while hoping for a miracle. It means staying committed to your vision while remaining flexible in your approach. It means learning, adapting, evolving. It means treating every setback as feedback from the universe, showing you a better path forward. I think of Edison again, not just for his persistence, but for his intelligence in persistence. He didn't try the same filament 10,000 times. He tried 10,000 different materials. Each failure eliminated a possibility. Each setback brought him closer to the solution. His persistence was informed. It was strategic. It was alive. Your subconscious mind works the same way. When you persist with awareness, when you pay attention to the signs and signals it sends you, you're not just stubbornly pushing forward. You're dancing with life. You're in conversation with the infinite intelligence that guides all things. Sometimes persistence means pushing harder. Sometimes it means waiting patiently. Sometimes it means taking a completely different route to the same destination. The key is to remain wedded to your vision, not to any particular method of achieving it. I've watched people destroy themselves through blind persistence, refusing to adjust their approach, even when every indicator screamed that they needed to pivot. That's not faith. That's foolishness. True persistence is intelligent. It's responsive. It's willing to take the winding road if that's what leads to the mountaintop. And here's something else they don't tell you about persistence. It compounds. Every day you persist, you're not just moving forward, you're building momentum. You're strengthening neural pathways in your brain. You're deepening grooves in your subconscious mind. You're becoming the kind of person who achieves their goals, not just someone who wants to. This momentum is invisible at first. You can't see it, you can't measure it. But it's there, accumulating like interest in a bank account, like water filling a reservoir. And one day, suddenly, everything shifts. The dam breaks. The harvest comes. Not because you did something different that day, but because all your previous days of persistence finally reached critical mass. People call this luck. They call it being in the right place at the right time. But you and I know better. We know it's the law of accumulation at work. We know it's the universe finally saying yes to someone who refused to take no for an answer. So when you feel like quitting, when you're tired and discouraged and the finish line seems farther away than when you started, remember this. You're closer than you think. You're always closer than you think. The breakthrough you're waiting for might be one more day, one more attempt, one more prayer away. Don't stop now. Don't quit 5 minutes before the miracle. Your subconscious mind has been working tirelessly on your behalf. The seeds you planted are germinating beneath the soil where you can't see them. The forces you set in motion are still moving, still building, still conspiring for your good. Persist. Not with gritted teeth and clenched fists, but with joy, with trust, with the absolute certainty that what you're seeking is also seeking you. The universe doesn't respond to desperation, it responds to conviction. When you stand in that place of absolute certainty, when you feel the reality of your desire before it appears in physical form, you become a magnet. You don't chase, you attract. You don't beg, you receive. This is the secret that the ancient mystics understood. This is what they meant when they spoke of faith the size of a mustard seed moving mountains. They weren't talking about blind belief. They were talking about the unwavering conviction that comes from experiencing the reality of your desire in consciousness first. Your subconscious mind is the most powerful creative force in your individual world, but it's also completely neutral. It doesn't judge your thoughts as good or bad, worthy or unworthy. It simply accepts what you consistently impress upon it and works day and night to make it manifest in your experience. This is why two people can be in identical circumstances and have completely different outcomes. One person impresses their subconscious with thoughts of limitation, struggle, and defeat. The other impresses it with thoughts of abundance, ease, and victory. Same circumstances, different inner conversations, different results. You see, your life up until this moment has been a perfect reflection of your habitual thinking. Every condition, every relationship, every circumstance is the outpicturing of the thoughts and beliefs you've consistently held. This isn't punishment. This is law. And once you understand the law, you can use it deliberately to create what you truly desire. The question isn't whether the law works. The law is always working. The question is whether you're working with it consciously or allowing it to work unconsciously, manifesting whatever random thoughts and beliefs happen to dominate your mind. When you take control of your inner conversations, when you deliberately choose what you're going to accept as true in your consciousness, you become the architect of your experience rather than the victim of circumstances. And here's something profound. The moment you truly accept something in consciousness, the moment you feel it is real, the outer circumstances must rearrange themselves to reflect that inner acceptance. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. The three-dimensional world is always catching up to the fourth-dimensional reality you've established in consciousness. This is why patience is so important. Not the patience of doubt, where you're waiting and hoping and wondering if it will work, but the patience of certainty, where you know it's already done in consciousness, and you're simply allowing the physical world to reflect that inner reality. Think of planting a seed. Once you've planted it, you don't dig it up every day to check if it's growing. You don't anxiously hover over the ground, wondering if anything's happening. You water it, you give it sunlight, and you trust the invisible process happening beneath the surface. You know that in due season, you will see the manifestation of what you planted. Your desires are the same. Once you've planted them in consciousness, once you've felt them as real and accepted them as true, your job is simply to remain faithful to that inner reality. Water it with gratitude. Give it the sunlight of positive expectation. Trust the invisible process happening beneath the surface of your awareness.